this is an extraordinary opportunity that one really only gets at Davos, where we have 4 heads of government from literally 4 different continents, 4 corners of the world, and yet they are all grappling with the same crisis, the same problem. And what we're going to try to do is to have a conversation about their perspectives on it and the road ahead. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time introducing them because they are extraordinarily well known. President Calderon is, of course, the President of Mexico, Prime Minister Brown of Great Britain, Prime Minister Han of South Korea, and President Motlanthe is the President of South Africa. Let me start with you, President Calderon. What specifically at this point, what kind of international coordination is the key to get countries out of this economic crisis?
A really strong leadership is required. So the first thing is leadership.
Who should that come from? President Obama?
Of course, Prime Minister Brown, but also President Obama. And that would be a very important difference. Now, the problem started in U.S., it's the epicenter, and the problem coincides with the lack of leadership in that nation. Whatever the reasons were, now there is strong leadership in the United States. And the people need leadership in every single country, and especially in the American society. And I think in this particular moment, the new president of the United States has the opportunity to show his leadership to the nation and to the world. And in each nation, and let me say in each enterprise, we need to show the same courage. Stop blaming each other or stop to think how bad we are in this Davos meeting. Start thinking what we need to do in order to move on, in order to overcome this crisis, and starting that, we will overcome the crisis.
Or as a president says, yes, we can.
Yes, Gordon Brown. Well, look, 2008 will be remembered as the year that there was a huge financial crisis, which was as big as anything that has been seen in the world. But let 2009 be remembered as the year where the world came together to deal with the problem. And people look back in the 1930s now, and with limited exceptions, people say that was a decade where people failed to rise to the challenge. In this decade, we have got to rise to the challenge. We've got to rise to the challenge of international cooperation. Look back on the 20s and 30s. Keynes went into the government of the day with plans to fiscal and monetary stimulus for the economy. The Treasury Secretary in Britain wrote on it only 3 words to his plans: inflation, extravagance, and bankruptcy, and rejected it out of hand. Churchill then said, "We were resolved to be irresolute, adamant for drift, solid for fluidity, all-powerful for impotence." Now, that's how that decade is remembered. We actually have got this huge advantage that we can cooperate with each other. Every continent can actually work together. We understand the problems that are faced by each continent. There is not a lack of knowledge, a lack of communication, a lack of willingness to work together. Now, that is what this year we have got to do. What we are seeing at the moment is thousands of people in every country of the world losing their jobs, thousands in fear of losing their homes, thousands of businesses going under. We can, yes, your slogan, yes, we can do something about it, and we ought to be working together.
Good.
Where are we in this economic crisis? I think many people here seem a little bit perplexed as to how to think about this in terms of a time frame. Are we in the beginning? Are we at the middle? A famous British Prime Minister once said, "This is not the end, this is not the beginning of the end, but it is the end of the beginning." Are we at least at the end of the beginning?
It may be trite to say this, but there is no one country that can solve this crisis on its own. And it's a far bigger financial crisis because of how it's developed over the last few months. The word credit is derived from a Latin word, credo, which actually means belief or trust. And this is a crisis not just of credit, it's a crisis of trust in our financial institutions. So we are taking quite extraordinary measures, so too are other countries considering them, to ensure that the resumption of lending can take place.
Why is it not happening, Prime Minister?
Why is it not happening? Because there is a crisis of trust and confidence in the banking system. It's as simple as that.
But these banks feel they have mountains of so-called toxic assets. What do you do about that? How do you get those off their books?
That's what we're looking at the moment. The capitalization was the first stage of the process. What you've now got to do is look at how you can isolate the bad assets, but at the same time, while doing so, you've got to find other vehicles by which you can get lending to begin. It is a crisis of confidence in the financial system, and it also comes back to issues about values, what values you respect. And I think at this time it's important to say that we reward work, we reward enterprise, we reward effort, we reward responsible risk-taking, but we cannot reward or condone irresponsible risk-taking and excessive risk-taking, which has been what has happened in the past. And so the values that underlie our markets are important as well. We want free markets, but they cannot be value-free markets.
Frugality and thrift has to be the foundation of market economy. But unfortunately, there weren't many people who practiced frugality and thrift until now. I hope that when we have a new architecture, new system, major CEOs would, some of them, practice these very important ethical principles.
It is again another irony, I suppose, that Max Weber wrote about the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, and he said, as you say, Protestants are thrifty. He actually in that book says Confucians, yes, Asians are bad at capitalism. And it now turns out the only ones who save are the Confucians, and the Protestants spend like drunken sailors. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours. Please ask a question. Make sure it is a question.
Thank you very much. I'm Arthur Mutambara from Zimbabwe. There has to be a paradigm shift in the way we understand concepts that are based on the nation state. Africans, for example, will want to be part of the crafting and defining of global solutions to the current crisis. To what extent are we incorporating African thinking and African responses to the global crisis? How global is our understanding of globalization?
Good question. President Motolande, you are now in the G20. Do you feel you are at the table? Your views are being heard? Do you want more? What would you like?
At the moment, many developing countries feel that they do not have a voice at all, and that their views are never taken on board. We've got to patiently put in place the building blocks, ensure that we build and consolidate democracies across the globe that subscribe to principles of transparency and accountability.